My good friend Richard Yeager is once again filming this for us. He is already upset with me that I poured a full cup of coffee, but as they were joking earlier here, I don't know what to do with my hands. So I have to have my coffee, and it makes me happy. So here you go. Apologize, you didn't hear me take a drink. I spent some time last night writing out this week's. I wasn't crazy about it. I went home, I pondered on it, I thought on it, I stayed up, and I finally came up with absolute genius how to put it all together, and then I fell asleep. And when I woke up, I'd lost everything but the fringes. So much like Samuel Taylor Coleridge and his great poem Xanadu, I've only got a little fluff. So we're going to do our best to go through, but I do want to try to explain something that on surface is a very, very simple concept. For those of you that want to just take it at that level, listen to me for 5 seconds and then turn this off. On a deeper concept, I hope I can do a decent job of trying to put this forth. I should have brought the whiteboard if only to write this, but if you want to take a note, write the word perception. Perception is huge. Ask any politician. Follow anyone in that world. They could care less about truth. They could care less about character and how much they preach it and blah, 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 because they know a great reality. Perception is all that matters. How someone perceives you is how they are going to judge. They are incapable, no matter how intuitive, no matter how wise, no matter how deep, of climbing in your skin and truly, truly knowing your heart. What they can do is try to judge it, and that is based on how they perceive it, how they are viewing things. Okay? Knowing this, if you are willing to accept it, and if you're willing to take on the stress of the challenge, gives you more power than you would think. It is much easier to manipulate someone's perception of you than it is to manipulate truth. Book came out years ago. Most of you have heard of it, though hardly anyone ever read it, because the title was so perfect it gave the answer in it. The book was called Dress for Success. I assume it's an outstanding book. I know it was very, very powerful, but the truth of it, again, in the title still stands. You dress for success. If you want to move up in the company, you dress like the executives. If you want to be the top person in whatever, you dress for it. If you are in construction, you're dressing according to construction, but you want to be viewed as bigger, as better, as everything else, you dress in the nicest looking one possible. If work boots are the shoes of choice, you wear the best ones. If an F-150 four-wheel drive is the truck to drive, you drive the 3/4 ton. You dress for success. You know why? People perceive you as more. Even if they make fun of you, even if they joke, even if they mock, that is insecurities jumping out and speaking against. That is deep down a compliment. That doesn't mean it doesn't hurt you, but deep down that is a compliment. And it is a compliment that they have a little jealousy, that they're a little bit nervous, that they want to be part. Dress to be the role you want to be in. One of the greatest sales tapes I listened to in the last 2 weeks. It's awesome too, by the way. Guy was saying, people ask me all the time, how should I dress? When I'm trying to sell to this, I'm trying to sell that, how should I dress? So it's ridiculous. It's easy. And by the way, we have gotten off topic. So you dress like the person you're trying to sell to. You want to sell to a banker? Dress like a banker. You want to sell to a housewife? Dress like a housewife. You want to sell to an oil field worker? Dress like an oil field worker. You want to sell to a grocer? Dress like a grocer. Dress in a way they relate to. And if you can dress one notch up, so above what they think that standard is, you've nailed it. It isn't perfect. You don't want to wear a suit to go sell to a bunch of union labor. You don't want to wear a Carhartt jacket, blue jeans, and steel-toe boots to go sell to the bank. Maybe in some cases you can, but you get my point. Perception matters. It is easier to put forth perception. Trust me, and I hope this is never used against me. I had no diddle squat about building a house when I bought this company. Nothing. I hired people for that. That's why I had to have a construction consultant, because I didn't have the background necessary for doing that end of the job. But when I went into my very first sales presentation, I didn't wear a banner that said that. I'd interviewed enough guys in the field. I'd gone to enough open houses. I knew what the top builders looked like and dressed like. And I looked like and dressed like them. And I wore my You Build It logo shirt. It wasn't that complicated. You went and put forth the appearance. The appearance is also vocal. It never, here's where a little caveat comes in. You will never ever, and my wife is never allowed to see this, you will never go wrong using higher brow language. If you view dress as being levels, you can always go highest brow language and people will always be in awe of you. That said, they might be intimidated by you, and that comes with another note we got to get to in a minute. Trying to decide whether to get off topic on that or let it come back around. Speak well, but know your terminology. Any of y'all that are new to You Build It, any of you that are new to construction in this office or out there, part of your manual, the planning manual that you give people, has a little section of terminology. If you don't know the terms, go read it. If you want to be real studious, memorize the whole stinking thing. If you don't, memorize enough that you can get by. I'll never forget one of my very first presentations, slipping out of there to go ask my consultant what the heck a cornice was. I'm faking it like crazy. Man, did I have it wrong. I didn't know it's something to do with the outside of the house. Needless to say, I did not sell that client. But faking your way through sometimes matters, but pick up on some of the terminology and be willing to throw down some of the terminology that they might not understand. But again, let me come back around on notes. People will judge you. They will judge how you look. They will judge what you drive. They will judge how you speak, what your business looks like. They will judge contrast. Do not have an office that looks right. Do not dress right, and then not be able to talk right. You've got to have a blend. Likewise, if you're any of y'all building a store for the first time, if you are that tough old general contractor and you're just a quiet type and you don't like the slick talking boys and their fancy suits and you ain't gonna waste all the time, you're gonna say how it is and everything else, your office needs to look like your house. It needs to look like your best house. It needs to look like exactly the house you would build for you and your wife if you were building one brand new right now. But it needs to show your character. You can't have a lot of frou-frou. You can't have a lot of things that don't fit. They walk into this fancy, pristine-looking place that looks like something out of Better Homes and Gardens, and then they walk into you, there's a contrast. Even if they don't realize it, in the back of their minds, they're having to rectify that. There's something they don't trust. It doesn't balance. You have to make that work. Likewise, using the exact same type of character, you can't show up in a suit. If you're a suit guy, and any of y'all that are in the You Build It franchise, you're going to know my friend Robert Raditz. I like to tease him about it. You can't show up in Levi's and work boots and a cheap shirt like this because you're a suit guy. It doesn't look right. Y'all know what I'm talking about. You've seen the guy out of his element that looks like he's... My father goes to a funeral, and he is from the generation where you show respect and you wear a suit and tie. He stands out like a sore thumb. You have never seen someone look more like a fish walking on land in your life. He is not a suit and tie guy. At the same time, I got a friend that we go to church with, and he isn't just a suit and tie guy. He is a bow tie guy. I mean, he takes the whole yard. He has the bow tie and everything. Impeccable dresser. Dropped by one day to take him something on a Saturday afternoon, and he's out working in the yard. Freaked me out. I mean, the guy just looks weird. Your lawyer, banker, classic guy doesn't look right in the other clothes. You have to match. Your language has to match you. Believe it or not, guys, this is easy. Most of us will make this part harder because we're trying to play a role. What I'm saying here is be honest to yourself to begin with. People will perceive, they will judge. Let them judge you honestly. It makes life a lot easier. Got to go back around. I'm getting too lost. You in your office, oh, this goes to my friend Rick Herron. You in your office must be perceived as successful, but not too rich. You must be seen as knowledgeable and experienced, but still accessible. Any of y'all ever seen the show, I think it's called Homes on HGTV? I can't stand this guy. And you ever watch the show, the guy is extremely respected by the people on there, partially because he's on TV, but that's irrelevant. Look at how the guy dresses. He dresses to fit his role. He is recognized as knowledgeable. He is recognized as experienced. He is not, and this is where y'all cannot be this guy. He is not accessible. You watch the homeowners when they foaming around. They're scared to death. If he says, oh, this is garbage, they're like, oh, yeah. You can tell. You look at them, their body language, everything says, I have no idea what I'm talking, but I know I'm not happy, and that's why you're here, and you're the guy, and you're mad, and you're not mad at me, so there we go. And he says something else, and when he tisk, they tisk, and everything else. If he says something's great, you know what? Oh, isn't that, oh my, phrase that I just wish HGTV would ban. Oh my God. Oh, gee whiz. I mean, the heck with whether it bothers you from a religious level. Overplayed, people. But everything they do, oh my God, oh my God. I don't know. But you notice one thing, if there's something you see like the husband in the background that they try to edit out that's like this, or the wife's not real happy, they won't ask. They're scared to death to ask this guy a question. If he tells them that's the way it is, okay, because they're scared to death to ask him that. By the way, quick side note for everybody in You Build It. You need to know that about your homeowners when you're out on site visits. They are scared to death to ask those subcontractors. Subcontractor tells them it's right. They believe him. They trust him. They're going to believe it to their grave because they're scared to death to ask. You have to recognize that and do it for them. You have to politely and professionally point it out. You have to ask questions of the sub with them and for them. Part of educating your homeowner is asking questions with them and the sub there so they learn it's okay to ask those questions and get educated. Some subs are nice guys, are going to train, some aren't, but they are scared to ask. Likewise, that old boy, he's not accessible. That's why he's great for that show. But he ain't going to sell anything on his own. And we can get lost on referrals and competence and that stuff later. That's another day. But you need to be accessible. People need to be able to communicate with you. They need to feel like they can talk to you. If you look too wealthy, that is usually perceived as not being able to move up on the pecking order. Okay. I'm checking my notes. I'm not meaning to leave you hanging for too long. I'm not going to go with the notes. I'm going to go down a different road. I don't want to leave you here too long, but I want to go back to the little side note I jumped off on for a minute. People never want to look stupid. People never, ever want to look stupid. It is the greatest insecurity that they have. If people have to choose between getting what they want and not looking stupid, they will always choose to not look stupid. Goes to the wound thing we talked about a couple weeks ago. Everyone is insecure. No one wants to take a risk. There's something in my notes that's making me think something. I'm trying to figure out how to bring it up. Fear of failure, and that fear is not fear of failure at all. It is fear of ridicule and not measuring up. Sorry, I was reading the note and thinking at the same time. Fear of failure. They say fear of failure is one of the greatest things that limits people. It is one of the greatest things that's going to stop people from signing behind you. They are not afraid to fail. They're afraid of ridicule. People aren't afraid to fail. If people are afraid to fail, they'd never cook in their own house. If nobody's going to pick on you, nobody's going to mock you, nobody's going to make you feel stupid, you're not afraid to fail at all. What do you care? You got a 800-acre ranch and you want to see what it's like to dig a hole. You go dig a hole. If it didn't work, you kind of laugh. You call it an adventure. You call it a learning experience. You call it how you got there, whatever. But if you go dig a hole and you got a friend who's a hole digging expert that's going to come by and look at it later, and he laughs at you, my gosh, you will never touch another shovel to the day you die. Insecurity is the greatest motivator. Do I measure up? That's our deepest question. Am I good enough? Deep, burning questions created and placed in your soul by the Creator. That is always going to eat at you, and somebody else telling you that you don't is terrifying. You have to realize this. This is going to help you in dealing with people's perceptions. Do you have their back? Can they trust you? Are you a security blanket? Why in heaven's name do I want to pay you $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 to help me build my house, except for the fact that I believe you are always going to prop me up. You are not going to let my word fall to the ground. You've got my back. You give me security. I will not fail. When you were trying to guide and lead these people through, when you were doing the presentation, they can't follow all these facts. They can't follow all this knowledge. This isn't what matters to them. The purpose of the facts and the knowledge you're showing them is so they can put trust and faith in you. You will never mock them. You will never hurt their feelings. And you will. And if something goes wrong, that you're going to be the bad guy. And if they are afraid and if they are nervous, they're not going to do it. And I will end here because, and I apologize, it's been a long, tiring week. And that's no excuse. I should have done a better job with my notes on this, and I will next week. One of the reasons, one of the main steps, and this is for everyone that bothered to come to a convention that for some reason liked this passage. One of the main reasons I used the bank as my first major close in getting people to sign. People's greatest, if you're told you can't buy, what was I just talking about? Finding out they're approved, I can do it. I can't fail. Nobody's going to mock me. Half the people are scared that you better have a banker that will call them. You better have a lender that will call them. They're afraid to call them and be told no. Some will call them. When they do, you know you got gold. You know what? You honestly are better when they don't call them and your lender calls them and he tells them yes. Because the guy that called's got enough security about his money. He's looking for facts. He's looking for knowledge. The guy that didn't call, but that would pick up the phone call to him, is interested enough to take the call, but too insecure to call and find out. When that person gets approved, and especially if your lender says, I can do this because of the great relationship that you build it, blah, 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 they just gain security that's tied to you. And there's that classic thing, that magic that happens when they have money. People are insecure. People are afraid. Accept that. Know that. When you are dealing with them, go there. So much to go over, and I did a poor job of it. I hope you got something from today's. But thank you all very much, and I will figure out how to elaborate and clean this up a little bit better down the road. Appreciate everybody that watches. Hope you get something from it. I appreciate y'all being here. And I got a question real quick. Should we do question and answer in this stuff at all? I tend to work better from a question and answer standpoint. Or should we not?
You want that to be staged?
Nah. I think it works much better real. I was asked, do I want that to be staged? Does anybody have a question at all on anything we went over? Yes, Richard.
Could you give us an example of what it would be like in a situation where you noticed somebody was afraid to ask you a question? What is that you noticed that makes you say that?
Perfect. Body language. When people start trying to close themselves off. Remember, most communication is nonverbal, and that is an absolute truth. By the way, did they hear your question on there?
No.
Okay. I was just asked the question, can I give an example of when somebody is seeming to be afraid and insecure and is closing off and doesn't look like they want to answer? Did I rephrase that correctly? Okay. it's a body language thing. And it's also a verbal thing. They will start to say things that are not leading in the proper direction. If your presentation is going correctly, every question coming from the client should be an opening up to more knowledge, should be an opening up to more information. If they are listening to you and buying what you're selling and coming to trust you, every question is more, well, what about this? And they start giving details from their heart. People start saying things like, well, I want my daughter's room to be, or what would the yard like, or what about landscaping? I mean, good golly, bless you people that say, what about a budget for landscaping? The fact that I tell you no is irrelevant. You just told me now you're already planting yard. You're already putting a tree out there, man. We just made a huge step. But as long as they're asking open questions, as long as they're leaning forward, even when they sit back, as long as they are open to you, and this is old school stuff, but that is very, very obvious. Little ticks, covering face for a long period of time, putting their hand on their head and seeming to close off. Anything that puts a veil of protection on them. Questions becoming shorter, questions becoming overly fact-based versus emotional-based. These are all statements that are getting nervous. The ultimate, and this one's so simple I shouldn't say it, so my apologies for offending anyone. The ultimate is somebody that shuts up. You got a client to quit talking, you have either A, pissed them off, or B, made them so insecure they don't know where to go. And that one is harder to win back than the angry one. Both are extremely difficult. Nothing worse than a client that gets quiet. You want to know the very, very best way to avoid a client ever getting quiet? Don't do all the friggin' talking. Go back to sales training a month ago. People love themselves. People want to talk about themselves. The fact that they came for you to give them information does not mean that they find you so fascinating they want to hear you and talk to you. It means that they find you so fascinating they want you to hear them and listen to them. Ask questions, shut up. Just take it from somebody who proves this on a weekly basis. The more you talk, the much higher your odds go of making at least somebody mad at you. Did that hopefully help answer a little bit? Anyone have any other questions? Either I am an exceptional teacher or god-awful about it. Thank y'all very much for watching. Have a great day.